Hey everybody, Joe here for Full Disclosure Now. I was taught in school that in our government and in our military we have officials that are very high ranking folks, and these are the people in control, and when they ask questions, they're given the answers. Well, with the latest leak in the UFO community, it's got all of us realizing now that, at least those of us that didn't already have a little bit of that indication, that, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, a lot of folks are referring to this latest leak as the leak of the century. And what it is, just to jump right into it, it's a conversation transcript between this man, former Vice Admiral Tom Wilson, who at the time was the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs Staff, and this man, Eric Davis, a physicist from the National Institute for Discovery Science. Now, they had a conversation that Mr. Davis felt so interesting that he was compelled to write it all down, and it's so detailed that it's not clear to me whether or not this was a recorded conversation or if he just went and wrote it down as quick as he could, as best as he could, but it is very detailed. Now, it's so detailed, it's 13 pages long. In the 15-page document release is also a 2-page letter that I'll be showing you just briefly. And in this video today, I'm not showing the whole document page by page and going through it. Before we go through the pages I do feature, I will briefly summarize the event timeline, and then we'll go through the featured pages. The pages I featured just have some of the best quotes out of this conversation, and I really think it's going to spark your guys' curiosity, or as Jeremy Corbell likes to say, weaponize your guys' curiosity, and I love that term. I hope you don't mind I'm using it, Jeremy. But that's really what we're here to do, is to get everybody aware and get everybody hyped up and get everybody involved in what's really important. Who cares what color the dress is on the internet? That's all BS anyway. So, all that being said, right back to it. The conversation transcript that Mr. Davis felt so interested to write down involved a Pentagon briefing that happened a few years back regarding these two folks, Dr. Stephen Greer, the head of the intelligence project, or the head of the disclosure project, intelligence project, well, it could be called either, I guess, right? And Dr. Edgar Mitchell, former astronaut, PhD. This American hero has since passed away, and it is confirmed that not only are these documents authentic, but they did come from the files of Dr. Mitchell. So it seems as though he is still helping us with disclosure. So thank you for that, Dr. Mitchell. Now, they went to the Pentagon and they gave a briefing to former Vice Admiral Tom Wilson. At the time, he was head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs Staff. And a few other folks were there in attendance, one of them a Commander Miller. And they gave actionable intelligence to these Pentagon folks regarding government-contracted corporations that were running programs where they were reverse engineering extraterrestrial technologies. Now, the folks in the Pentagon were a little surprised at this, given the fact that they didn't know anything about it. So Admiral Wilson goes looking around, and he makes some phone calls, asks some questions, and is ultimately denied access, blocked from the programs he has oversight of, and ultimately threatened. They tell him that if you don't stop pursuing this, we're going to remove some stars, we're going to deny any future promotions, and you can forget about your early retirement if you're interested in that. So that begs the question, who's really in charge here? The man, don't forget, the man we're talking about here was the former head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs Staff, J2. This is the guy that gave the daily presidential briefing. He clearly had oversight of these programs that he was trying to get in touch with, and even when that didn't work, as you'll see, he went to higher channels, made formal complaints. They got back to him and said, you know what? We're not going to do anything either, and you just need to back the hell off or you're going to regret it. So that's got to be quite concerning to all of us, and I think that's why this is being referred to as the leak of the century. So without further ado, let's get to it. This is the first page that I've decided to start off with, and it is the actual first page of the document. They are meeting at the EG&G Special Projects building. They're getting acquainted here, and then Admiral Wilson confirmed Miller, Greer, Mitchell gave talk in Pentagon conference room. So that confirms the meeting at the Pentagon. Then after the group broke up, Miller and Wilson talked privately for 2 hours on UFOs, MJ-12, Roswell, crashed UFOs, alien bodies, etc. Now, Miller is referring to Commander Miller, and you'll see how Commander Will Miller, and you'll see how he plays in here. But he was one of the Pentagon officials that was at the briefing as well. Now, Miller and Wilson, again, it states here, they talked for 2 hours on our dime about stuff that we're told is a ridiculing subject, right? So that's a little interesting to me. And then number 3, Miller asked the question on MJ-12 Cabal crashed UFOs and told Miller was right. There is such an organization in existence. So they went looking, and they did find some information about MJ-12. Now, Admiral Wilson, I found it where I looked, who I talked to, but did not name everyone. Eric Davis states, I showed Miller letter, and the Miller letter, I'll show you guys in just a second here. It says, I show Miller letter to me, please evaluate. So he's asking Admiral Wilson to evaluate the letter that Commander Miller wrote to Davis. And Admiral Wilson, after reading the letter, states, Miller can make a good educated guess on who has alien hardware, referring to the contractors. So apparently Commander Miller knows where to point, and they're going to go looking. Now, here's the letter from Commander Miller to Eric Davis, and this, as I said, is part of the document release. And the beginning of the letter is just apologizing for the delay in the correspondence, and then it says, I would be willing to assist you and Hal being Hal Puthoff. I would be willing to assist you and Hal with your ongoing research into UFO crash retrievals, and the entities within the government or outside of it that are involved in it in this business, with the following caveats. So he has a couple of conditions here. He's saying, I'll talk to you guys, but on a few conditions. First, there must be absolutely no mention or association of my name with your work or investigation. I have absolutely nothing to gain from such association at this time, and possibly much to lose. Well, cat's out the bag, so okay. Secondly, he's talking about his consulting fees, and then third, he goes on to state that he is not currently holding a top secret clearance. However, he did in the past. Now, and then it states, now all that said, and pending further discussion with you and Hal on your ultimate objectives for having such information, I could provide the following. And I jump down to number 2 here, number 1 on my list, but number 2 on the letter states, the name and last location of a senior officer who I believe had first-hand knowledge of U.S. government alien reproduction vehicles at Area 51 and associated locations. Now, that's not the first time I've heard the term ARVs, but here it is popping up in a letter between a high-ranking military official at the Pentagon and a prominent physicist with NIDS. Now, it goes on to also state that he can also provide the name and location of a retired senior flag rank officer who I believe was directly involved in government interaction with a significant UFO event on the east coast of the U.S., and I believe has, by virtue of his former leadership position, high military rank, and government and control of significant military forces, direct knowledge of U.S. government involvement in this business. Be very curious to find out who he's talking about there. So that's the Miller letter. Lots of information there. Apparently Miller had some information he felt could be helpful, but again, did not want to be in the middle of it at all, as you could see. So on to the transcribed conversation. This is page 7. And it states, Admiral Wilson, they told me of a special projects not belonging to usual special access programs, a special subset of the unacknowledged carve-outs waived programs, not belonging to usual special access program divisions as organized in 94 by Perry himself, set apart from the rest but buried, covered by conventional special access programs. So what this is referring to is he found a project that was going on where he was told to look, and this project was buried in layers and layers and layers of other projects. So very, very unconventional, not normal. It also had a huge budget, way higher than any of the other standard special access programs that he was used to looking at, that he had oversight of. You know, this is not something that this man was not used to dealing with. However, the blockade is something new to him. You know, he's not used to being shut out. So moving on, This is page 9, and Admiral Wilson states, I read their program record in ALSDAT Special Program Records Group and wanted to know about their crashed UFO program, what their role was in that, what they had, etc. Also asked if they'd heard of MJ-12. Eric Davis asks, reaction to that on the phone? Because remember, this is a conversation between Eric Davis and Admiral Wilson. And Admiral Wilson says, yes, they asked who I spoke to before I called them. So I told them, and they weren't happy with that answer. Now, interesting enough, they basically answered his question with a question because he asked them 2 questions, and they basically said, who have you been talking to? So, again, this is the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs Staff, and he's speaking to folks at a corporation. Okay, so now this moves on, page 13. I'm jumping way ahead here in the conversation. I'm jumping way ahead in the events timeline because, again, I don't want this to be a super lengthy video, and I'm leaving a link for the entire transcribed conversation. Please, everybody, I know this is going to spark your curiosity. Go and check out this whole thing. Read it for yourselves. It's super fascinating. Now, I'm just going to read this. They had... And program manager talking, in parentheses, a craft, an intact craft they believe could fly, space, air, water, dimensions. Was it from overseas or not? Said no, could not be, not possible. Why, I asked, where did it come from? Program manager said they didn't know where it came from. They had some idea on this, but it was technology that was not of this earth, not made by man, not by human hands. Said they were trying to understand and exploit the technology. Their program was going on for years and years with very slow progress. So information he was given or was able to obtain, super compelling, but still not given any access control to this project, which he should have had clear oversight of. So they're still blocking him. They're talking to him a little bit, trickling him this, trickling him that, not showing him a damn thing. So he goes on and makes formal complaints up the chain and is told, we'll get back to you. And when they get back to him, this is what he's told. They told me that they were sustaining the contractor. Now, sustaining means that they're going to back up the contractor. We agree with what they say, basically. So they told me that they are sustaining the contractor, that I was able to immediately drop the matter and let it go. Forget about it, as I did not have purview over their project. It didn't fall within my oversight, etc. Admiral Wilson goes on to state, I became very angry, started yelling when I should have kept my mouth shut. Eric Davis asks him, states, Miller and Greer said you nearly got busted. Now, busted is referring to having stars removed, actually being demoted. And Admiral Wilson says close to that. And if you read through it carefully, it goes on to talk about how he would not see a promotion to director of the DIA. It goes on to state that he will not get an early retirement. So completely stonewalled, completely threatened, and completely unconstitutional, which asks the question, again, who's in charge? What is top secret? What's unacknowledged? What's an unacknowledged special access project? I think we all need to start asking ourselves that these days. With everything going on, I think we need to have as much clarity on as much of this topic as possible, that's for sure. So that's the leak of the century. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed that information. I know that you're going to love the actual 15 pages of conversation when you get to it. And when you do get to it, let me know what you think about that in the comments below too. I'd really like to know what you think. Now, getting on to the declassified document of this episode. This one I chose because it's not only interesting because of the details in the account of the event, but it's really interesting where they sent this to. Everybody that they thought really needed to have this information, and they sent it to them right away. It's a pretty lengthy list. It's a lot of very sensitive places and locations that they sent this to. But the ones I've highlighted, I've found the most interesting, and one being the Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Energy. They also sent it to the Joint Intel Center for the Pacific. They sent it to the Office of Naval Intelligence, This one is great right here. I love this one. They sent this to Fitron 101 VF 101. This is a Grim Reaper U.S. Navy fighter squadron, one of the best on the planet. And so this account was found so credible that they wanted the best fighter squadron on the planet to be prepared in case it encountered this phenomenon. Now, they also sent it to the AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And if you're not familiar, if the Air Force had its own FBI, that would be the OSI. They are the counterintelligence of the Air Force. So a lot of important folks that this was sent to, and you're going to see why. This was an event that happened near the Lithuanian border on June 25th, and it was witnessed by 2 duty motor police patrol officers. And it placed the whole Vilnius police on the alert. Vehicle loads of soldiers from the area's rapid reaction force, sniffer dogs, and police reinforcements immediately arrived on the scene of the emergency. Now, according to the eyewitnesses' accounts, at about 12:30 midnight in the early morning, near a village 10 kilometers from the capital, at an altitude of 20 to 30 meters above the ground, they noticed a spherical object hanging and pulsing, alternately shrinking and expanding. That's not any conventional aircraft I know about. Now, at the same time, they heard what they described as a strange sound like an electric or electronic crackle. Wanting to take a closer look at the UFO, the policemen moved toward it. When they had advanced about 50 meters through the long grass, the police said the sphere moved away, rose higher, and rapidly departed in the direction of Vilnius. The policemen watched the UFO for about half an hour, and on their arrival at the scene of the emergency, members of the this is where it gets super, super fantastic. Members of the Civil Defense Department and servicemen from the Special Forces and commissioners of the capital's police. Whoop, let me back that up. Sorry about that. I want to get a little closer here because this screen's a little bit far away for me. And let me back up just a little bit. I do apologize for this. Okay, the policemen watched the UFO for about half an hour, and on their arrival at the scene of the emergency, members of the Civil Defense Department, servicemen from the Special Forces, and commissioners of the capital's police carefully studied the area, measured the background radiation, and tape recorded the strange sound, which was still heard in the area after the disappearance of the UFO. The sniffer dogs did not discover anything suspicious and behaved quietly, but it was noted that all the tall grass around the place But it was noted that all the tall grass around the place over which the sphere had hung, wow, why was I having a problem with that, was flattened to a radius of 10 meters. Okay, so 10 meters around, all the grass is flattened around. But what I find it really interesting about this one, let me back up out of your faces now. What I find really interesting about that part of the whole thing is that the dogs did not react suspiciously. They didn't behave, erratically in any way, which tells me that they knew that at that time there was no threat. Very interesting. Now, Lithuanian scientists have not yet expressed an opinion on the appearance of this UFO near Vilnius. Police commissioner, and I don't want to try his name because it's just super hard, said in a radio interview today that both officers who watched the shining object are psychologically healthy, normal people, not noted for crankiness. And I believe crankiness under this context is referring to playing pranks or joking around about stuff like that. And so that's it. That's the declassified document today. And pretty interesting, pretty detailed, and again, who they sent it to was really amazing to me. So they certainly found it credible. Otherwise, why would they send it to all of those very vital locations and departments? And so that's the information today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I apologize for the little glitches today. I'm trying to get a different setup here. What I really need to do is just get some editing down, get some editing capabilities is what I need. But again, thanks for watching. I appreciate all you guys' support. And as always, keep your hearts and minds open and your eyes on the sky.